Hello folks, in this video we are going to learn about input tag in HTML5. So input tag is very useful when we want to build a login form, a contact form, or a registration form, right? Where we want our users to fill certain informations about them, right? So let's see input tag in VS Code. So let's open VS Code at folder tutorials. All right, code dot and it is open VS Code for me. Now, as you can see, I have created a folder called tutorial 8 with index.html. Now let's start with starter template. I'll change the title here to tutorial and I'll create an empty div in the body tag. I'll create another div and here I'll write label saying name. Now, guys, if I haven't covered label already, label is generally used to label the form elements or inside an input field. But again, there are different use cases of label. You'll learn with time. Let's move ahead. Input type text, and this is self-closing. Now, here we have certain properties. For example, placeholder will write enter your name. There are also properties like name and ID. But this name and ID will be more meaningful when we start with JavaScript. We don't need ID for now. I'll take only name. Right, let's move ahead. I'll create another div. Here I'll write a label. I'll write email. I'll create an input field of type email. Here I'll write a placeholder saying enter your email and the name of email. Now let's say something in the browser. I'll create a go live. And here, as you can see, we have a name and email input field live on our website. Let's go back. And as you can see, this is looking again overlapped. I'll just add few little styles to make this look at least a little better. I'll write style, I'll create a main or I'll say a parent div. Guys, just ignore the styles for now. Display of flex. I'll say a flex direction, flex direction of column, align items of center, and a margin top of 20 pixels. I'll create another div. I'll say margin bottom of 20 pixels. Now, guys, we have a property on the div called class. Now, what is this class? This class will apply the styles if you write this parent div on it. Now, just for your knowledge, this class will be replaced by class name when we enter React. So I'll write simply parent div here. We will go deeper into CSS once we start with the CSS tutorials. Right, so I'll write parent div here. And this div, since I haven't written dot or hashtag represents the ID of the element. So it will apply all the div, let's say in the browser. As you can see, with writing this styles has made the, how can I say, the fields looking better actually. Great. Let's move ahead. So we have seen an input of type text. We have seen an input of type email. Now let's move ahead. All right. Another, okay guys, I've written data here. Actually, it will be div. Now div again. Here I'll write label saying password. Now I'll write an input. And guys, there's another shorthand. If you want an input field and don't want to type it, you can simply write input and then it will create the tag for you. So here it will be password. And if you want to see the options, you can see command option, command space actually in the Mac and control space in the Windows. So I'll select here type of, I'll show you one thing, text. And then here I'll write a placeholder. It will be self-closing by the way. Enter your password. Password. Great. Let's say in the browser. The password, enter your password. So as we can see this here, it is showing me the strings actually. This should not be the case for password. That is why we have an input of type password, which will simply not allow the users to see. So now if I start typing my password, it won't show you the password. So this is of input type password. Let's move ahead. Div, sorry, div. Now I'll write label, and then here I'll write gender, for example, gender. Yeah. Now here I'll write an input of type radio actually. I'll self close it. Here I'll write name to be gender. Value will be male actually for this. Now here I'll create another label saying male. Let's create another label saying female and create another input of type radio. Name will be same and value will be different, female. Let's say in the browser, what do we see? So as you can see, you have gender and then male, female. Now, one thing to notice here is if I'm writing a group of element here, for example, so this gender is specifically related with this specific element, right? So if I change the element here, for example, gender to genders, it won't work. Now, as you can see, I'm able to select both. So the name has to be same if you are creating a group of radios, and the values can differ. As you can see here now, one is getting checked and the other is not. Great. Let's move ahead. So we're done with type radio actually. Let's move ahead. I don't know why this is giving me a dial. Okay. Now another label, I'll say DOB, or I'll say select DOB. Now let's start with input. Type will be date actually, and the name will be date or DOB. Let's see that. So guys, as you can see, we have DDMMYY, which is date, month, and then year. This is a format actually. And if I click on this specific input field, you can select the year. You can select the year. You can scroll this if you are not born in this specific year. And you can also select the date. First, I'll select, for example, I'll select the year, for example, 2011, June, and then 29, right? So this is allowing me to select a specific date. So this is of input type date. Let's move ahead. I'll create a label again, and then here I'll write select your desired color. Here I'll create input of type color. Name would be color, self-closing. Let's say now, as we can see, select your desired color and it's showing me a color box. If I click here, I can select the color, right? I can also select the hash colors if I want, right? So again, we have another property here, value. We can have value on pretty much all the input I have given. But again, this will be more meaningful when we start with JavaScript. So for example, here, if I write hashtag FFFFFF, this is basically a hash color of white color. So let's see. So as you can see, now this is, if I refresh the page, this is appearing by default, the white color, and we can also change the color, right? This is pretty much it about the input. Let's move ahead. I'll create another div. I'll write label here, and I'll write is maybe or I'll write two-factor authentication enabled. Here I'll write an input of type checkbox. Right, I'll write name of 2FA. Let's see. So as you can see, this 2FA can be checked and unchecked as well. Say this. Great. We also have a property checked here, which will be either true or false. So I'm writing checked. That means it will take it as true, right? Let's say. So if I refresh the page, it is checked by default. I'll remove the checked again. Okay, great. Let's move ahead. Now we have another input type called file type. So I'll write select file, and here I'll write input of type file. Let's say, so here it says select file, choose file, and then no file chosen. If I click on this, guys, if I go to downloads, and then as you can see, I can select any of these files, and it will show that yeah, you have selected that specific thing. As you can see here, there is one more thing to be taken care of in the input of type file is accept. For example, your website is allowing only .jpg files or .jpeg files. So we will write accept and then comma dot the name of the extension, again the comma, the name of the extension. I'll save it. I'll go back. Now if I click on choose file, you will see, guys, all the things are disabled. Like I have PDF, I have a lot of things like zip, but I can only see the options JPEG and JPG as I've written here, JPEG and JPG. Right, great. Let's move ahead. Now we have another input type which is called image actually. So here I'll write selected image, and here I'll write input of type image. Self closing. Here I'll write name. Here I'll write image selected maybe. Here I forgot to write the name. Name will be file selected, or we can write doc file. Great. Now one thing to notice here is as soon as I have selected the type as image, I have a lot of properties available, whatever I can have in img tag, right? As you can see, the src tag, here I cannot have src tag. Okay, here I'm having, but this will not accept actually. This should not be the case, guys. So let's move ahead. So here this is expecting again an image. Here we will write an alt tag saying my image. I need a random image URL, so go back again to Piscom Photos. I'll copy simply this URL, go back to my VS Code, I'll paste it here, and now you see this image has been rendered on the web page. Now let's put a width and height. We have width as 220 pixels and then height of 200 pixels. Let's go back, and as you can see, it has taken the width, height, and everything. Right, let's move ahead. I'll write div here. I'll write label. And what else do we have? Let's say type. We have number actually. Here it will be self-closing. Here I'll write name to be QTY, which represents quantity basically. And here I can write placeholder select quantity maybe. Quantity. Okay. And here I'll write quantity. So as the type for this input field is set to number, it won't accept strings or other values. I'll show you how. So I'm trying to type strings, but this is not accepting. It will only accept numbers, as you can see here, and you can increase and decrease number with the help of this given default icons. Great. Now let's move ahead. Div. I'll check what else is left. Input of type. We have Okay, we have covered checkbox color. We have, okay, so let's start with hidden. So guys, hidden is basically used when you don't want to show your specific input field. I'll show the example. I'll write label and I'll write hidden input label. I'll click on save. And as you can see, the label is visible, but the input is not, right? We have another properties. For example, we have for URL, this is like a general input. Now we have time, for example, we have time. So if your app has something to do with a specific time, you can use input of type time. So here you will select the hours. Actually, you can select AM to PM. If you are building some kind of app where you need the clock, the need of a clock, you can use this time, right? Now, what else do we have? Let's say input of type. Great. We have submit and then reset. We have another thing which I can show you basically is, yeah, I can show you range. Great. So here I'll write another label saying select your age range. You have often seen age range option on the website for the website which are built above a specific years. Here I'll write here we have certain properties. For example, but first let's say this in the code. As you can see, we have a range scroller. Now you can increase and decrease. Let's start with min value. So here we have 0 to 100, or we can increase that. So I'll write min equals to 0 and max to be 100. And here we have value say, so value can be between min and max. So here I'll write 39, for example. As you can see, by default, it's 39. If I change this to 99, it will go to 99. So you can play around with that. You can also increase this value and it will take accordingly. Great. So guys, we have another input type. I'll write div, I'll write label, I'll write here. Okay, so we don't need label here. I'll write input of type submit here. And then here I'll write value submit. Let's see that in the code. So as you can see an input of type submit actually. So this will be meaningful when we start with forms in HTML. We have another input of type reset actually. The value will be reset my form actually. So if closing, let's see. As you can see, submit and reset my form. So again, this submit and reset my form will be discussed in the forms because it's related there. This will basically reset the form and this will submit the form. So we will see it there. This is it for this video, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.